kiss and touch or touch and kiss?
It's touch and kiss.
Okay, thank you.
I emailed you back, didn't I?
Yes, you did, but I'm trying to find it. I can't remember what you wrote. It's quicker to ask. I'm lazy. The kiss and touch or touch and kiss? It's touch and kiss.
Mhm.
Touch and kiss.
Yeah, we didn't get lipstick on it.
This has to do with Torah Aliyah, not any kind of interactions between.
Now, if people don't know what we're talking
Mention
about,
what you
it's kind of like, is this X-rated? Are we Como?
Hi, Rona.
Good morning, good afternoon, how are you?
Good. Yourself?
How are you?
Fine,
Yeah.
Thank you.
But any better?
Me?
Yeah, your leg, foot. Yeah.
So. I
Uh,
saw your email this morning. Thank you for sending that. I have to run it off.
Oh, isn't that interesting? My brother, what my brother sent me, I'll send anyone if they want. It was a list of the most common Hebrew prayer words, translating.
Yeah, that is,
Yeah,
that will be helpful for everyone, I think.
I can,
Yeah.
I was thinking of
Right.
sending when I get the whole class list.
That's great.
Hello,
Good
Penny.
prayer
Did you
book.
walk this morning, Ruth?
No, I worked at clients early this morning.
Oh, okay, because it's
And
freezing
then I had
out
classes.
today.
I've had a full day with that.
Yeah,
It's not too bad. I just went walking. When
Oh,
the
it's not
wind
too
isn't
bad, huh?
constant. No, the wind isn't constant, so, and the sun is shining, so.
It felt
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Not anymore.
Starting to
You
get a
up
little
walking?
cloudier.
Rona, can you walk? Are you up to it?
Um,
I'll go if you ever want to.
I know, it'll be a couple of months, I'm afraid.
That's what we can do, little teeny ones.
Yeah, I'll let you know when I'm ready,
She
though. I'm
can
looking
hop.
forward to it. No, I can't hop. My husband says I can hop. I can't even hop, so.
Hmm.
What
How's your
happened?
day? It's a long story.
Sorry to hear about that.
Yeah.
It'll get better. You're working on it.
I
Some will
hope.
find. The doctor will do it.
Yeah, it's starting to cloud up now a lot. But next week I heard it's going to be 50s and 60s.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
great.
That's
All
something
right,
to
well, let's
look
get
forward
started,
to.
folks.
Okay.
So, oh, Hannah's coming and Teresa is here. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, I just can't get it up on my laptop. For some reason, my mail's not loading and I can't even search for last week's. So I'm on my phone and I might pop out to get on my laptop if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Hi, Hannah.
Hello.
So, folks, let's start out with a little bit of review. Let's sing
Oh, here it is.
Vishamru. So I'm gonna mute you all. We'll sing Vishamru. It's in Aleph Isn't Enough on page 63. Or if you prefer Sidur Sim Shalom, it's on page
63. I said. You look at 53. I'll look at 60.
on page
44.
hold on,
44.
44.
Yep.
34, yeah. Oh, Teresa's entering again.
Vishamru is on 34?
34.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, 44.
44?
Yeah. In this,
It's
in this book
it's
here?
on both.
Oh,
34
and
and
that, oh, I'm
44.
sorry.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
34 in here.
I'm sorry.
It's in multiple
is it?
places on here. I was looking page 63, but it's also on page 44, apparently.
Oh, 63, I got it.
Yeah, both of them, whichever you like better. All right, so I'm going to mute everyone. And let's sing it and see how we do. Ready? Here we go. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat lidorotam berit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashviyi shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash, v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam. I'm going to invite you to unmute yourselves now, so you could tell me how it was. Was it easy, no problem, singing along with me? Was it too hard, too fast? Was it difficult, doable?
David, what page are we on? I missed that.
63 or 44?
63 or 44 in Aleph isn't enough, or 34 in Sim Shalom. Well, that would make it much harder not having the words in front of you. Rona?
So I found it much easier to follow with you singing it because I'm not sure what words to keep repeating
Mhm.
sometimes.
That's why it's good to have a leader who knows what they're doing.
Yes.
So there's a difference in level of knowledge between being able to follow someone else who's leading and being able to do it yourself or lead yourself.
Right.
That's the first lesson that I teach in bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah tutoring. That being able to be a congregant and follow the service is this different level of skill from being able to lead a service. But you don't need to be able to lead a service unless you want to lead a service. So
I'm happy listening to you.
being able to follow is a good thing.
Yes, yes.
Any other comments, thoughts about that? Okay. So let's do it again, this time with a vote. And a vote is on page, let's see. Page 72 of Aleph isn't enough. Oh, actually, no, I want to do it on 35B in Sim Shalom. So does everybody have the printout, either a Siddur or what I sent last time? No.
Which we have a different book, right?
Yeah, we have a different-
Right, but I sent everyone,
Yeah, and I didn't print it out.
right.
Gotcha.
Well,
Look for
tell you
it.
what, I'm going to send it to you again now.
Could you just share a screen or that's, no, you don't have. to.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. I'll just share a screen.
Thank you.
That means I need to open the document though.
Annie, that's teamwork.
That is, oops, that's the wrong.
Steve,
Yes.
there it is. I'm sure you can read it.
Yeah.
It's a little
Yeah.
too large. Can you pull it back? That's better. Thank
Am I
you.
close enough?
Got it.
And Mike, I like your hat. I went out and got mine.
I
Oh,
think
yeah,
you got a
wow.
friend here. Good taste.
I might need to get mine on, but. All right, here we go. There we go. Does everybody see that
Oh,
now?
nice. That's
That's
very
good.
nice.
Excellent. You even see my fingertips there.
Yes.
That's better.
All
than-
right. So now,
Very nice.
I'm going to mute you all. And normally we would do this standing up. Actually, let's do it standing up if you can, if you don't mind. If you'd rather do it sitting, I'm not going to sick the Jewish law police on you. So you remember that we skip these small lines in small type, some of them, but not others. So we're going to start with Adonai Sfatai over here. Adonai Sfatai Tiftach Ufi Agita Hilatecha. Adonai Sfatai Tiftach Ufi Agita Hilatecha. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanorah El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Vekonei Hakol Vezocher Chasdei Avot Umevi Goel Livnei V'nehem Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava. Skip down to here. Melech Ozer Ufoked Umoshia Umagen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Abraham Ufoked Sarah. You may be seated. Now, I don't know if I had talked with you before about the choreography of this. Besides the standing, there is bowing that takes place on the Baruch Atah Adonai in the first paragraph, the first line, and the Baruch Atah Adonai in the last line. And it's not just bowing, it's bending knee, bowing, coming back up. So you sort of bend the knee on Baruch, you bow, straighten the knee and bow down on Atah, you come back up just before or on, should be just before, but most people come back on Adonai. It's purely a sign of respect, like how you would treat a noble or a king. And it only happens in Avot. It doesn't happen in Gevurot. And I often see people do it down here. Do you see where my cursor is, folks? You no? Well, right where my fingertips are, there's a Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayeh Hametim. I don't know if you can see that. I often see people bowing in services there, and there is, while I guess, there's nothing so terrible about doing it, it's not part of our tradition to bow then. It's only part of our tradition to bow during Avot, not during Gevurot. Yes, Becky, unmute yourself and ask.
Okay, so I have a question. I know sometimes when the reader says Baruch Atah Adonai, we're supposed to respond with Baruch Hu,
Or who has that?
No.
Baruch Adonai, Baruch Atah Adonai, Baruch Hu, Baruch Hashem,
Yeah, the name.
right?
Baruch Hu uvaruch Shemo is what it is.
Is that what we're supposed to? Oh, I thought it was Baruch Hu, Baruch Hashem. Okay,
You don't do it. You don't do it
Neither.
in Avot.
Okay,
unless it's a reader's repetition of the Amidah, which we don't do at our temple.
okay,
At more traditional temples, the Amidah is done privately, silently first, and then the Chazan, the cantor, or whoever is serving that role in the temple does the whole thing out loud.
okay.
So, well, let me first answer the question in terms of what the heck is Becky talking about here. So there is a response when you hear someone else make a blessing. There's the one that's a more common one that everybody knows, Amen, after the blessing's done. But after the Baruch Atah Adonai part, the reader will pause so that people could say, Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, which means bless and blessed is his name, is God's name. So it's a way of supporting the reader and saying that you support and agree with what the reader's doing. You don't do it when you are making the blessing yourself. And so the way we do it at our temple, I don't pause there because I want people to sing that with me, not listen to me. So if you are singing with me and doing it, you don't do that. Does that make sense? You don't add that interjection. You only add that interjection if you're hearing someone else make a blessing that you're not making. Does that answer the question, Becky? Great. The other choreography is for Adonai Svatai, that first line. And for that one, there is the custom of taking 3 steps back and then 3 steps forward. And again, that's mimicking some ancient Near Eastern way of addressing kings and royalty. So it's a way of taking this very seriously, like most people would have a lot of fear and nervousness and extra respect with a real human king who has life and death power over you. But we might forget to do that with God. And so this is saying you should have the same respect and awe and fear regarding addressing the King of Kings or Queen of Queens or genderless ruler of rulers than some human king that's less powerful than God. So how was your ability to sing Avot along with me better than it was last week, or the same, or was it too hard? Was it easy? Let me know.
It was okay.
It was
just
okay. So it's a long
David,
prayer.
David, I do have something to ask.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I can barely
Yes.
hear you guys. Okay, so for the Avot that you did a recording for,
Yeah.
that is spoken. So
Oh,
I'm assuming
really?
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go into the YouTube video and watch it and practice it that way?
What YouTube video?
Oh, this live broadcast. Last week I went back through and watched this because I missed class.
Oh, so I thought I had sent a
Well,
second recording this week.
oh,
That
maybe
wasn't
you
come?
did and I didn't see it.
It's possible that I sent the wrong. Did anyone open the recording that I sent with the follow-up for this week?
Yeah.
But you sent this, I didn't have a recording, the first one. Then when I asked her for you to send it, I got it. There was
What
no
do
attachment in
you-
the first one.
I don't
So-
think you sent a recording other than YouTube.
Yeah, you didn't send the first one. That's why I asked.
Oh,
Well,
I thought I
the
was,
one that you sent, that just has the spoken word, that was on February 19th.
yeah, that was before.
all right. So I must have forgotten to attach a recording of this.
But
So
what
I
you
will-
sent me, you sent when I requested one, you sent me and Rona,
Oh,
that was the right one.
Right.
this.
So I will make sure that I attach it in the follow-up to today's.
okay. Thank you.
Thanks for pointing that out, Teresa.
can I ask a question? This is
Sure,
Penny.
Penny.
In my Siddur, there's one word that's different.
Oh,
And
only,
it's,
only one?
That's what I was gonna say.
Only one, I believe. I could be wrong because,
So
you know.
first-
but
first of all,
one I
tell-
noticed.
Tell
and
us what
it's-
your Siddur is.
My Siddur is Siddur Hadash.
Okay, I have that. Let me get it.
Anyway, and I'm looking at the Mincha Amida for weekdays, but
Page is
but
it, Penny?
it's actually what I've seen in other ones, at least in this Siddur, because I sort of remember things. And anyway, it's the next to the last word. And in this version, on your version on that you shared, it's it says ufoked,
Yeah.
Sarah.
Mhm.
And in this word, it's oh gosh, all of a sudden I'm having, let's see.
Can you tell me what page you're on, Penny?
In my Siddur?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm on page 687.
687.
Yeah. And it's Ve'ezrat Sarah.
So I'm willing to bet that there are more differences than that, but that is a
Well,
good place to
yeah,
start.
But that one definitely is one I noticed. So let's put it
Great.
that way. Because I was
So-
following yours, but when we got to that last word, I didn't know it. You know, I mean, I saw that it was not Ve'ezrat.
Right. So I think I mentioned, and this is a good time to talk about this, that traditionally, this prayer doesn't have any of the imahot, doesn't have any of the mothers.
Right.
Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah are nowhere to be found in the traditional version. Probably around in the 1960s or 70s, Jewish feminists and those allied with them, which basically includes the Reform movement, the conservative movement, the Reconstruction, everyone but Orthodox, basically. All as movements, not all the individuals in those. There was a lot of controversy in all of those movements about doing this. They decided that this is one prayer that we need to make inclusive of women. So, problem is, they didn't all decide to do it the same way. And hence, Penny Siddur has some differences. And that's also why those same differences are in, actually, so you can see pretty much what Penny has on page 72 of Aleph Isn't Enough. I believe page 72 is the same as Penny's text, but I couldn't swear to it.
Well, it does have Ve'ezrat, but it also has, I forget where, but there is another word in here that.
Oh,
isn't
there's one more difference.
Yeah. Ba'amal.
Let me see, where is it? So anyway, let's talk about that one first. That's a really interesting one. So the most basic difference between the traditional and the versions with the mothers are the inclusions of the mothers. So let's talk about that first, and then we'll get to your question. Okay, Penny?
Sure.
So in the traditional text, if you have the Siddur Sim Shalom, and you could turn back to 35a, you could see the traditional text. But you could see, like, in the first line here, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu, that is the same. However, in the version on page 72, it adds another word there, ve'imotenu. So avotenu means it either means our ancestors or our male ancestors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason for the two different choices here. the conservative movement decided that they're going to translate Avotenu, meaning our ancestors, male and female.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the liberal world decided Avotenu in this prayer has been used for millennia to just refer to the fathers. So we need to add the word for the mothers. And that's why it's there on page 72 and in Penny Siddur. So you got that word V'imotenu. Then you have this list of names. Have we gone through translating this? So, blessed are you, Adonai, our God and God of our Avotenu, either our male and female ancestors or our male ancestors. And we could add V'imotenu and our female ancestors, or matriarchs, really. Then we got Elohei Abraham, God of Abraham. Elohei Yitzchak, God of Isaac. Ve'Elohei Yaakov, God of Jacob. So far, that's exactly the same in your Siddur, right, Penny?
Right.
And that's the same in the traditional prayer. Now we have the addition. Elohei Sarah, God of Sarah. Elohei Rivka, God of Rebecca. Elohei Rachel, God of Rachel. Ve'Elohei Leah, and God of Leah. Is that the same, Penny?
It is in this one, but it isn't the same in our text.
Oh,
And
so, wow. So that's the difference between yours and, so if you look on page 72, who could tell us the difference there?
And they confuse the heck out of me, that difference, actually.
They have
Was that Penny?
Rachel and Leah's names are reversed.
Yes.
Right.
And what did you say, Penny?
It really confused me because I'm so used to chanting it the way I'm used to chanting. And all of a sudden, these letters are moving around in my head going, what's going on here?
So can anyone venture, why would these, first of all, this choice is an interesting choice anyway. They could have said Elohei Abraham, Velohei Sarah,
Right.
put the husband and wives together. They didn't do that. I think, who knows why? I think the reason why is they wanted to preserve what was in the traditional prayer and then add to it in one chunk rather than break it all up. But why this difference in the something happened and now all of a sudden I have an echo. So it's gone. Maybe someone muted. Anyone venture any? So our text in Sim Shalom has Rachel before Leah. Penny's text also has Rachel before Leah, doesn't it? But the text here has Leah before Rachel.
Textbook puts Rachel
What?
after Leah.
Right.
So this is some decision about who's more important.
Yeah. Poor
Yeah.
Leah.
So
Or Leah.
why are you saying poor Leah, Penny?
Why? Because, it was kind of sad that her dad, she had married the guy who really didn't love her and, bringing 20th century ideas about it. I mean, I felt like, she wasn't as respected because, he really wanted Rachel.
It's not easy being Leah. She gets disrespected a lot.
Yeah.
And here's an example. So what's the argument for putting Leah before Rachel? Who knows
Chronological.
their Genesis?
He married her first.
Yeah, chronological.
He
Didn't he
married
have to
Leah
marry-
first?
Yeah.
Didn't he have to marry Leah first because his father told him you gotta wait?
Yeah, you got to marry the old one first.
And plus, she's older.
Yeah.
Two reasons to put Leah first. She married Jacob first, and she was older. Those are some good reasons.
Can I jump in here?
Yeah.
Because we left out two other very important matriarchs who are Zilpah and
Bilhah.
Bilhah. So, there were two other women who had children by Jacob.
Or tribes. Yes.
Yeah, and they
Absolutely.
should be included too, because I am part of bringing these women to the forefront. So why aren't they in this? Avot.
You know, there are some versions that do have them, I believe, but they haven't been used by the major Sidurim and movements.
Slow to change, slow to accept the women.
I have a question.
So the reason
Okay.
they haven't been included is that they weren't considered
Family.
full wives of Jacob, right? So for all the so that's an excellent point, Annie. So we might, if we were going to write this, we might want to include Zilpah and Bilhah. If we're only going to have these four, we have some good arguments for Leah first. However, in much of our tradition, when these matriarchs are listed, they're listed with Rachel first. And that's why the conservative movement did it this way. I'm not saying it's the right decision, but that's the rationale. And it's, I guess, because, you know, that's the one that Jacob loved more. But that's the way that it's often been ordered in the tradition. Yes, Norm?
If we take the words of the Shema,
Yeah.
or at least one interpretation is that there's one God.
Mm-hmm.
God is one. And yet in this prayer, we're saying the God of each one of these people.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we doing that? Why are we, if it's the same God, why couldn't we come up with the right Hebrew, God for all of them?
Mm-hmm. That's an excellent question. It's a very unusual grammatical construction to say God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, God of Sarah. Why not just say the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, or Leah and Rachel? And why it was actually written this way, who knows? But we do have some old midrashim that have some explanations. Whether they are the explanation, I don't know. But I'm more interested first in hearing, does any of you have an idea? Why would the writers of the prayer write it this way? Yes, Norm?
Well, the one thought I have is we're emphasizing God. I mean, he's the operative. God is the operative on this, the God of Abraham, the God of this, the God of that. And then we know it's from other sources, it's the same God. It's not a lot of different gods in our pantheon. It's one God. So to me, either we're emphasizing it or we're confusing it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Becky?
Okay.
So maybe because each of them came to God separately, not like Isaac didn't come to God because he was Abraham's son, but he had his own separate relationship with God, like like Jacob and Isaac and Abraham. They were all came to God on their own, regardless of who their father was.
Yeah.
That's an excellent answer. That's very similar to what some of the Midrashim say. Some of the Midrashim are saying that there is only one God, but everyone's experience of God is unique. And our only way of knowing God is in the encounter between each of us as an individual and God, which each time shows a slightly different aspect of God.
Mhm.
And so it's a paradox where God is one and also unique to each individual. Here's another, if you have I can't see, I can only see like 5 of you at a time. So if you have your hand raised or something to say, you need to just unmute and let me know while the screen is shared, I'm saying. So here's another idea, is that the whole point of a vote is to link us, each of us, the prayer of this prayer, with our earliest ancestors in our tradition by linking our experience of God to theirs. And as each person, you could say also each generation has such a different experience of history and the world and their culture, that this is showing that it's one God throughout these different generations and experiences of God, just as it was following that right to us. So it's making that link of one God throughout all these generations.
David?
Yes,
Yeah, I was also going to say it's more poetic way of speaking too.
absolutely. It's very pretty.
I mean, it's not just a list. God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Rachel, Rebecca, Leah, Sarah. It's a more poetic way of saying it.
Absolutely. And when you were saying that, it made me realize also, like, it really emphasizes that each of them had an experience of God. If it were just
Right.
a list, say, oh, well, maybe Isaac didn't have such an experience of God.
Well, he had an experience. It just wasn't the same as everybody else.
Yeah, that's true. Penny?
Yeah, I actually had a thought about our earlier topic, and I didn't know when to insert it, so I'll just insert it now, which is I was thinking perhaps Rachel is put first because of the significance of her children.
Mhm.
That story.
Yeah, well, that's true too. So who were her children, Penny?
Oh, well, Joseph, right?
Joseph and Benjamin.
Benjamin. Joseph
So,
and Benjamin.
and Joseph is among the tribes, second in importance, perhaps only to Judah. Judah, because the northern kingdom came from Joseph and the southern kingdom came from Judah. Those were the two most powerful tribes.
Mhm.
So that's
Can I make a comment about Isaac?
Sure.
So God had a very direct relationship with him because God directly saved Isaac's life. His father was going to kill him, and God saved Isaac.
Yeah, well, you could
So
say the
that's
opposite
real.
also. You could say that God also threatened his life.
Well, yeah, but that wasn't Isaac wasn't in that conversation. As far as he knew, here he was being bound, and here was his father with a knife, and then God sent a ram. So
That's true.
it must have been a really important relationship.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's keep going forward. All right. So so now we're sort of in the middle of the third line after Leah. So we've got Ha'el, the God, Hagadol, the great, Hagibor, the powerful, Hanorah, the awesome, El Elyon, the highest God, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, who grants good kindnesses or acts of loving kindness, V'koneh hakol, and created or possesses all, V'zocher chasdei avot, and rememberer of the kindnesses of the avot, of the ancestors. Penny, you got something different after avot? You're muted, by the way.
I know, I'm just having a hard time finding what this is.
If you're not Penny, you could look on page 72, the fifth line.
The fifth line. I'll vote. Yeah, I know there they have the Vima. Oh, I'm just.
Right.
on this version-
But yours
this version.
might be, let me see.
I'll vote. Ume V Goel. No, this just says Ume
No,
V
no, so
Goel.
that doesn't add. So,
Added,
so
but it
what's
doesn't-
added on page 72, somebody?
It's the Imaut.
Yeah, but imahot. So it's saying we're not going to leave it at that word that could mean male and patriarchs or both genders. we want to make sure that the female ancestors are included. Again, that's a choice. And then we've got Umevi Goel, and who brings a redeemer. Livnei B'neihem, to the children of their children. So if you look on page 72, there's a difference there that it says Geula, not Goel. Does yours, Penny? Oh, yours has both. Umevi Goel, and you got in parentheses Geula. Right? So here's the difference there. Goel is the traditional phrase. The conservative movement decided to keep it. Goel refers to a person who is a redeemer, a person sent to redeem humankind. In other words, the Messiah. So in liberal Judaism, there is a fair amount of discomfort with the idea of a person being a redeemer. And they've sought to displace that concept with an age of redemption rather than a redeemer. So Geula means a time of redemption, bringing redemption rather than a redeemer. So conservative movement keeps the traditional redeemer. Reform movement doesn't like that idea and prefers redemption or age of redemption. Lama'an Shemo B'Ahava, for the sake of God's name in love. Any thoughts, questions about that? You might be wondering why doesn't the Reform movement and other liberal Jews like the idea of a redeemer? And
Isn't it kind of a Jesus Christ kind of a feeling?
it does have kind of a Jesus-y feeling, even if it's not referring to Jesus. Like they would say, we believe in a redeemer, just not Jesus. That would be the traditional answer. We believe in the messianic idea is very strong in Judaism, both pre and post Jesus. That's why Jesus was given that role by Jesus' followers, because it's such a strong idea in Judaism. So there really wasn't much objection to that idea until fairly recently in Jewish history. Although the false messiahs, there have been a few false messiahs post-Jesus that have soured Jewish thinkers on it a bit, but not enough to take it out of the traditional texts. Yes, Becky?
So isn't the, like, we all wish for the Messiah and everything, but the Messiah is not necessarily the Redeemer with a capital R. Isn't the Messiah supposed to begin the age of redemption?
Yeah, but the Messiah is called the Redeemer because he or she traditionally would be instrumental in getting this started.
Yeah, so he's going to get it started, but he's not going to, this Redeemer person is not going to be the one who does everything. It's going to be a sign of things to come that will come after.
I think it's a little bit stronger. Like, I'm going to confess at the outset, I'm not really as much of an expert as I would like to be to answer your question, to respond to this definitively. It's not one of my bigger strengths in Jewish history and thought, but I think it's a little bit stronger than you're saying. That like in Jewish thought, the Messiah is a political leader and religious leader who brings about great changes that are then include other people, a human being, not a god, but someone who brings about great changes. So Yeah, I think part of, yeah, go ahead, Penny.
I was just going to say, I mean, I certainly think that part of the worry about the concept of having a redeemer has to do with the cult-like power that a person might have who people believe is the redeemer. And if you look at the Lubavitch sect, and you might see some
Right.
of that.
There's
there.
an example that many Lubavitch
Lubavitch.
Hasidim believe that the Rebbe was the Messiah. Right?
Not was, is.
Or is, right, that's true.
I mean, really. I stayed in the house for women there. I went to a wedding, and all the young girls from around the world who stay there all had little pictures of him by their bedside. I was really shocked.
Right. Well, that's the least of it, Penny, because it's very common in Orthodox households for people to venerate saints of all kinds.
Really? I guess I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
To venerate the tzaddikim, and they, famous, wonderful rabbis. They have their pictures. They have their, like how, your regular Massachusetts resident might have a card of Tom Brady or something, or used to have a card of Tom Brady, not anymore. Anyway, so I think you're right, though, Penny, that and especially the idea that it was a political and religious leader in one. In traditional Judaism, that's a wonderful idea. And like for Americans, that's a terrible idea. For members of liberal democracies who like liberal democracy, it's not such a great idea to unite a religious and political leader. So there are lots of sources of that discomfort. All right, we're almost to Penny's question now.
Norm has his hand up.
Oh, okay, Norm.
Thank you. I may have missed this conversation, but if you look at page 72 in the workbook,
yeah,
the very last 3 words on the page.
Mm-hmm. Honor your mother.
Well, the word it's Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah.
Yeah. Yes.
But
so
in Sim Shalom, sorry?
Go ahead, Norm.
And again, you may have discussed this because we were talking about differences. In Sim Shalom, the word ve'ezrat doesn't appear. It's a different word.
Yeah, ufoked.
If okayed.
And ufoked also appears.
The same thing, just different words, or to the same thought?
So that was Penny's question, which I have not answered yet. So Penny was saying, why does my Siddur say ve'ezrat and yours says ufoked? So just before I answer the question,
Translate.
Ufoked also appears after Melech Ozer Ufoked, Umoshia Umagain in Siddur Sim Shalom, whereas on page 72 and in Penny's Siddur, it just says Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagain. It just skips that word. Basically, that is the traditional way, and the Ufoked is an addition for the sake of Sarah. So what's going on here is that traditionally there is no Ezrat or Foked. Both of those are ways of equalizing the treatment of Abraham and Sarah in this prayer. It's traditionally we have Magain as Abraham's experience of God, shield of Abraham is that's an expression that's in the Torah as a way of describing Abraham's experience of God. So since we're adding Sarah to the prayer, we need to have some descriptor of Sarah's experience of God. So the conservative movement and everyone else took 2 different approaches. Conservative movement said, let's look in the Torah to find something that is in the words of Torah that encapsulates her experience of God. And so they chose Fokade. Now, Fokade is a word that has multiple translations. It means to visit. It means to remember to fulfill a promise, remember to do something for someone. And they chose that word because it is paired with Sarah in the Torah in regards to God remembering to do something for Sarah. What would that be?
Get her pregnant.
Get her pregnant, exactly. That God made the promise through the angels who came to visit. By next year, you'll be pregnant. God remembered that, fakad that, and she got pregnant. So that's why the conservative movement chose this word. There are some problems with the word, though, which is why some of the others sought something else. So the word could have negative connotations, like remember to do something to, like to punish for a sin or something like that. And there is some idea that in that same encounter with the angels, Sarah laughed and God remembered that to her detriment with that same word. And so they said, we don't want anything that has that negative connotation. And so they said, there really wasn't anything else in the Torah, but they liked this. Ezra just means helper. Ezer is help. And so they decided to go with the word ve'ezrat.
David,
Yes.
in a way, though, we've just been studying Sarah in Torah study.
Yeah.
God did help her also, though.
Right. God did. That's why they choose.
Quite a few times he protected her from
Rape.
I guess you'd call it rape or forced marriage to someone.
Right. Those trips down to Gerad and Egypt.
And he also helped her to get pregnant.
Absolutely. They chose the word because it does fit thematically. It's just that the word is not paired with her name in the same way. That's why the conservative movement didn't choose it. So, there are pros and cons to each one. That's why they didn't make the same decision. Any other questions, thoughts about that? So do you all want to have like just 2 or 3 minutes? Does it pay to you to have just a couple of short minutes of breakout room Chavruta time? Yes, I'm going to stop the screen share for a moment here so I can see you. Thumbs up, yes. Thumbs down, no.
Yeah, doesn't matter. Neutral.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't
All right,
matter.
let's not do it. Let's not. It's not enough time. So, hold on a sec. So that took a little longer than I thought, but it was important, good discussion. Let's tell you what. Let's talk for a second about what else is in this chapter. So we got some expressions and greetings that I'm going to ask you to read for homework on page 73 and the 4th and 5th commandments. I'm going to ask you to just do some reading for homework. And then you could read about these different translations. I think we've discussed most of the points to that. But it's another explanation. Maybe it'll have something that I didn't say. So, and then we got vocabulary on the bottom of page 75 of some of the words that are in here. And top of page 76, we have the names of the patriarchs and matriarchs. Those are good things to know in Hebrew if you don't know the translations of those names. Now let's just talk a second about the Hebrew root, you got the Hebrew root, ayin, zayin, resh, ezer, that's the help. That means help. So we got all different kinds of names that came from that root and words that came from that root. Page 77, we've got the root zayin, kaf, resh, very important for, it means remember or memory. We have a bunch of words that come from that. For example, our service of remembrance of the dead, that takes place a few times a year, yizkor. You take the yud off of that, you've got that root. Memorial, remembrance. So that's on page 77. So I'd like you to read that for homework. Read the Hebrew with a, Annie, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Well, if you're finished giving the homework, Penny and I had a little question from last
Oh.
week.
Okay, yeah, so I'd like you to read the Hebrew and read the descriptions and stuff like that. We'll go over it a little bit next time. And I'll also keep learning Avot and Vishamru and the Torah Aliyah blessings. Yes, your question, Annie.
So it's actually in the vote. If you look on page 72, the third from the bottom, it's the second from the bottom, full line. The very last word is shemo.
Yes.
We were wondering, is that a root or is it just a word? And what does it mean?
It means his name, referring to God's name. So Shem means name, and the suffix O is the male possessive, male singular possessive, his name. So that means Lama'an, for the sake of, Shemo, his name, Ve'ahava, in love.
Great.
Natalie.
Can you say what the homework is again? You mentioned several pages and then reading.
Okay, yes. So read through pages 70. I'm just going to do it in terms of pages. 73 through the top of 78.
Okay.
And you could do your Hebrew practice from those pages with your Chavruta. And I also want you to practice the prayers that we've done so far. Avot, Vishamru, Torah Aliyah blessings.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's an appropriate amount. Norm.
On a much lower note,
Yes.
the word Morgain, and we go
Magain.
Morgain Avraham,
Yeah.
that's the same Morgain as the Shield of David, the Morgan David.
Magain David, Shield of David. So that's the Jewish star called. It's called the Magain David, the Shield of David, because that sign was on shields apparently. Yes, it's the same thing. It's a shield. Same thing. Any other questions about this? So a little preview there's so much to talk about with the Amidah, but I do want to just go over a little bit the structure of the whole thing. That Avot is for just the first section. Under it on page 35b, usually on the same page, you have Gevurot, the second section, which means the powers of God. So after that, there's a section called Kedusha, which is about the holiness of God. After that, there's a series of petitions, asks, requests in the weekday Amidot. When it's Shabbat and holidays, those are replaced by things about the holiness of the day. If it's Shabbat, it's about Shabbat. If it's about a holiday, it's about the holiday. And then it ends with prayer for peace, shalom. Something about prayer in temple service, and something about gratitude. Modeh ani, or modim anachnu lach, we're grateful to you, a paragraph about gratitude. So that's the general structure. And I'd like to talk with you a little bit more about that. We generally, the part that's done out loud is just Avot and Gevurot, and sometimes in Kedusha. Those first three sections are out loud. And we usually do something from the Shalom section out loud. But I think it's worthwhile to look at what the overall experience was intended to be. So with that, I will bid you a fond farewell for the week. And I'll make sure I put a recording of Avot with the singing in my follow-up email.
Thank you.
So, thank you all. Have a wonderful week. It's been great spending
Thank you,
time with
David.
You too. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Have a good week.
Take care.
Thank you, David.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Be well.